Our story today will tell you about the biggest bank robbery in the history of France, and one of the most fortified banks around the world. The intriguing part of this story is the genius of the thieves who executed a clever plan that terrified the investigators and confused them to the point that they couldn't believe what happened and were unable to recover the stolen items. The events of this exciting story took place in a bank called Société Générale, one of the most famous banks in France, which has branches all over the world. This bank is located in the beautiful city of Nice, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. During this period, most of the wealthy from all over France would come to this particular bank to secure their valuable possessions, including vast amounts of money, gold, and rare jewelry, placing them in this bank with absolute confidence. On the other hand, the bank accepted all types of deposits and kept them inside a giant underground vault, fortified with strong security systems that are difficult to breach. It was known among clients that this bank had an impenetrable vault and was under strict security around the clock, so they felt comfortable and reassured, completely confident that their wealth was stored in the strongest bank hideout France had ever known. But what happened on the morning of Monday, the 19th of July, 1976, had never happened before. It shook the foundations of the bank and changed the course of events. The day began as any other day. A familiar routine, a calm atmosphere. The employees sat behind their desks, ready to receive customers. Everything seemed normal up to this moment. After that, the bank manager, accompanied by one of the employees, headed towards the central vault located deep in the basement on a routine mission to withdraw the necessary cash to meet customer requests. When they reached the bank's basement, they opened the main door smoothly as usual. But when they opened the inner door leading to the vault, suddenly the iron door stopped moving completely and remained fixed in place. Despite their repeated attempts, they were unable to open it. None of them panicked, and they remained calm, because this was not the first time this 75-year-old iron door, weighing more than 20 tons, had malfunctioned. Initially, everyone thought it was a simple technical issue, which is expected for a door of this size and age. But soon, the tension began to gradually rise among the employees, especially with the increasing number of customers standing in front of the bank door, waiting for their transactions to be processed and wondering among themselves about the reason for this delay in this embarrassing situation. The bank manager had no choice but to contact the manufacturer of the vault, as they are the only ones qualified to handle this type of malfunction, possessing the necessary expertise to decode this type of door. Only a few minutes passed before the company representative arrived and quickly began examining the lock mechanism carefully, trying to determine the cause of the door malfunction. After his inspection, the expert discovered that the lock was working perfectly and had no issues. Nevertheless, the door remained as it was, unresponsive and unmoving. All attempts to open it failed. After that, the expert brought more of his tools and continued examining the door, trying to identify the malfunction. Meanwhile, the customers gathered in front of the bank's door began asking anxious questions. Why can't anyone access their money? What is the reason for this mysterious delay? Fear and frustration began to show on their faces. Their patience ran out, and anxiety and tension turned into chaos and widespread protests driven by fear for their valuable possessions. They want to access it. On the other hand, the manufacturer of the vault door sent a team of technical staff to assist the expert in trying to solve the mystery of the stuck door. They continued their repeated attempts but to no avail, and they could not figure out what was happening. There are no visible malfunctions and no logical explanations to justify this standstill. It seemed mysterious and complicated until signs of confusion and bewilderment began to appear on the faces of those present, and some started asking questions. Could the door have been locked from the inside? But that's impossible. How can you lock the door from inside the safe that has no entrance or exit other than this door? And as their confusion escalated, they decided to drill a hole next to the giant vault door to allow them to see inside the vault and find out why the door was stuck. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the awaited small hole was finally completed. Everyone gathered around it, their eyes racing to see beyond the wall. In a single moment, the truth was revealed. It was a strong and unexpected shock. The bank had been robbed. The vault was almost empty from the inside. The shelves, boxes, and safes were all looted with complete professionalism and absolute calm. The bank manager immediately called the police, and within minutes, the bank was filled with police officers who came from everywhere, along with senior investigators from the city of Nice, because they realized the seriousness of the crime and understood that they would be opening an investigation into one of the largest bank heists in the history of France. And with the arrival of the police officers at the bank, they decided to enlarge the hole enough for the investigators to enter the vault. When they entered, they found that the thieves had stolen more than $20 million. In addition, they looted the contents of more than 400 safety deposit boxes that contained gold bars and priceless jewelry. But amidst this destruction, the investigators found a sentence written in large letters on one of the walls: without weapons, without violence, and without hatred. The question that strongly arose in everyone's minds was, how did these thieves enter the vault? And how did they leave without anyone noticing? However, the answer to this question did not take long. While examining the basement floor, the investigators noticed a deep hole in the ground leading directly to a secret tunnel connected to the sewer system of the city of Nice. And as they went down to it, they found that the thieves had left behind all the equipment they used to reach the bank vault. When the investigators examined the equipment for the first time, they realized they were facing a brilliantly executed plan. They found 27 gas canisters used to supply welding lamps, along with an advanced ventilation system carefully set up to bring fresh air through the tunnel during work. In addition to nearly half a mile of electrical cables. Through this advanced equipment and the deep tunnel, it became clear to the investigators that these thieves had planned this massive operation for many months, or perhaps years. It was a brilliant strike, deserving of everything they obtained. At the end of the investigations, it was revealed that the thieves managed to steal more than $20 million in cash, along with valuable jewelry and gold bars valued at more than $10 million. These enormous amounts and significant losses classified this operation as the largest bank robbery in the history of France. Even the global press did not hesitate to describe it as the heist of the century. The news of this incident also spread across most global media outlets and made it one of the main headlines in newspapers and news bulletins, becoming the talk of the hour. As for the bank management, they announced a financial reward of $250,000 for anyone who provides information leading to the arrest of the thieves. This massive and complex theft prompted the French authorities to launch the most extensive security investigation in the country's history. A select group of the most skilled investigators from across France was called in, and they began conducting a series of in-depth investigations that included interviews and interrogations of thousands of people, including bank employees, clients, safe deposit box owners, maintenance workers, and even residents living near the bank. Everyone was subjected to extremely thorough questioning. Based on all these investigations and the information gathered through the interviews, the picture began to become clear to the investigators. All the evidence clearly points to the existence of a dangerous criminal gang called the Sewer Rats, confirmed to be involved in this theft. This gang uses the sewer tunnel network in most of its secret crimes. After months of intensive investigation and inquiry, the police finally succeeded in identifying a number of the initial suspects. All indications confirmed that these people belonged to the Sewer Rats gang, However, in the absence of any concrete evidence that would allow the police to legally arrest them, the investigators decided to place them under strict surveillance around the clock, tracking all their movements precisely, in the hope of identifying the rest of the gang members and reaching the true mastermind behind this operation. After a period of surveillance and anticipation, one day the police spotted two members of the gang under surveillance entering a local bank to sell some of the stolen gold bars. But these thieves did not know that each gold bar had a secret number printed on it that distinguished it from others and could be easily tracked. When the bank employee received the gold bars and checked their serial numbers, he quickly discovered that they matched exactly with those reported stolen from the Nice bank. The employee immediately informed the police, who quickly raided the bank and arrested the two men inside. Now, the authorities had solid evidence directly linking the two men to the robbery gang that targeted the Nice bank. The investigations began with them, but the two thieves refused to confess or reveal their accomplices in the crime. The investigators first resorted to using intimidation and threats of violence to make them confess. Despite that, the two thieves remained steadfast in denial, denying all the charges against them. Afterwards, the investigators decided to resort to a second plan, which was to conduct precise psychological analyses of their personalities during interrogation in an attempt to uncover common weaknesses among them. Through this psychological loophole, the investigators could infiltrate their minds and pressure them to confess and reveal the identity of the mastermind behind this operation. Indeed, the investigators were able to discover the common weaknesses between the two, which was their deep concern for their families. The police informed the thieves that they were accusing their relatives of the Nice bank robbery despite their innocence, and that they were moving towards arresting some family members. The police assured them that it had the authority to imprison anyone, even if the method was illegal. This threat was enough to pressure them into confessing. And after the psychological pressure exerted by the police on the suspects, one of them began to gradually break down in front of the investigators and reveal to them the name of a mysterious person working as a photographer named Albert. He said that this man is the mastermind behind the entire operation. The police immediately moved and went to the photographer Albert, arrested him, and charged him with planning and executing the Nice bank robbery. Albert was severely shocked, and signs of astonishment appeared on his face. He told them that he didn't even know about the robbery, and that he had no connection to it. The police officers felt despair and frustration as Albert appeared to them as an innocent person, lacking the qualities of a mastermind capable of planning with such genius and precision. When the investigators asked people about Albert, most spoke of him as living a very simple life, working as a photographer, a romantic and devoted to his wife. He lives in the countryside, far from the noise of the city. His appearance suggested nothing, just a simple man. This is why it seemed strange in the eyes of the police. How could a man like this think of massive conspiracies or a bank robbery of this scale? Despite that, he was detained, and the investigation began. His interrogation sessions started and lasted for long hours, during which the investigators tried to extract a confession from him by all legal and illegal means. But Albert remained calm, insisting on his innocence and denying all the charges against him. During his interrogation, another team of police officers moved on a secret mission and raided the house where Albert lived with his wife. The surprise was shocking as they found unlicensed weapons and hand grenades carefully hidden inside the house. These weapons gave the investigators full power and control over the course of the interrogation. The police also learned that Albert loves his wife deeply and would not allow them to arrest her. So the investigators decided to pressure Albert by accusing his wife, telling him that they would arrest her on charges of possessing illegal firearms, which would lead to her being imprisoned for many years. At this very moment, Albert broke down, fearing for his wife being imprisoned, and finally had to confess to the police that he was the mastermind behind this complex operation. He began to recount the details of his ingenious plan, saying that the idea came to him 2 years ago, when one of his neighbors who worked at the bank told him that the bank building did not have an effective alarm system. Albert seized this golden piece of information and went to the bank to rent a safety deposit box for himself. With this step, Albert gained a privilege that gave him the right to enter the bank vault without being accompanied by guards. This method was granted by the banking institution to private box owners, providing them with a kind of privacy while placing their personal belongings. Albert took advantage of this privilege, then entered the bank vault, took out his camera, and began filming every corner and nook of the vault precisely. After that, he gathered all the important information and wrote down all the details about the thousands of safe deposit boxes inside the vault. He also found himself in need of a clever plan that would allow him to stay inside the vault for a long time without being seen, so he could open or break most of the locks. And after deep thought, he realized that the best way to enter the vault was through the underground sewage system. On the other hand, the city of Nice had a massive network of underground sewage tunnels. But the problem is that these tunnels do not pass directly under the bank building. Therefore, Albert thought the best solution was to dig a secret tunnel, starting from the nearest point that could reach beneath the bank building. Initially, this task seemed daunting and extremely difficult. Afterwards, Albert decided to go down into the sewage system himself and spent weeks moving between the dark tunnels. He examined the routes and measured the distances, searching for a direct line leading him beneath the bank and finding the right place to start digging. It was not easy to find the right point to start digging from because the sewage system was so decayed it was unbearable. Foul odors penetrated the breath and burned the throat. This made Albert realize that continuing inside the tunnels was an almost impossible task. So he decided to change the plan and pretended to be the owner of a construction company. Then he went to the municipal building and submitted a request to obtain the sewage maps of the city of Nice. No one suspected him. He quickly obtained a detailed and accurate map of the entire sewer tunnels of the city of Nice, which greatly facilitated his planning. After studying the map, Albert finally found the closest point connecting the sewer tunnels to the bank building. To execute his plan, he had to dig a tunnel that was 30 feet long. Although the distance is not long, the biggest challenge is that the digging is directly under one of the busiest roads in the city of Nice. The sound of digging could easily be heard from the street above them. After deep thought, Albert developed a meticulously planned strategy, but what he lacked were the right equipment and men to execute it. Therefore, he decided to travel to Marseille, where he met with several gang leaders and presented the idea to them, including members of the famous Sewer Rats gang, who liked the idea and showed enthusiasm and willingness to execute it. It was agreed to assist him in exchange for the largest share of the loot, in return for providing the labor and bringing all the necessary equipment. At the start of the operation, Albert placed a group of men in the digging area equipped with radios for quick communication with their friends, in case the police appeared suddenly, so they could act quickly. They took all possible precautions to ensure the success of the operation. The digging process was indescribably exhausting, especially since they were forced to use traditional hand tools so that people wouldn't hear the sounds of digging. The digging site was narrow and hot, with almost no air. The working conditions were extremely harsh. Despite that, the men continued digging in this exhausting manner until they almost lost consciousness from fatigue and lack of oxygen. And one day, one of the diggers couldn't endure these harsh conditions and lost consciousness inside the tunnel. Under this pressure, Albert found himself forced to divide them into small groups. Each team worked for 10 minutes and then took a break for another 10 minutes. To conserve their energy and improve the quality and efficiency of the work, Albert also brought a private doctor for emergencies to ensure better workflow. As they dug deeper into the tunnel, they realized they were in dire need of fresh air and proper lighting. Therefore, they brought a ventilation tube and an electrical wire half a mile long, drawing electricity from a nearby garage to operate the ventilation and lighting equipment. These arrangements contributed to improving the working conditions significantly. Albert believed that the key to the plan's success lay in the comfort of the workers, so he did his utmost to ensure their comfort and make them feel at ease. After 9 weeks of continuous work, in the early days of July, they finally reached the cellar wall. Everyone celebrated this achievement, but Albert was fully aware that the journey was not over yet and that a lot of hard work still awaited them. To reach the bank vault, they had to penetrate a thick concrete wall that was 12 inches thick. Drilling into this wall wasn't difficult. They needed pneumatic hammers and drills to break through it. At the same time, Albert was afraid of the drilling noise when using these tools, so he decided to climb above the drilling area to monitor the situation. After climbing up, he gave the order for the workers to start drilling. It quickly became clear to him that his fears were unfounded, as no sound was heard that might reveal their presence or attract attention. They began drilling with enthusiasm and focus, and managed to drill through half of the solid concrete wall, but they decided to postpone the remaining half of the wall until the night of the vault break-in. After that, the awaited day was carefully chosen, which was Saturday, the 17th of July, coinciding with the first day of the weekend, meaning the bank would be completely empty, giving them enough time to complete what they started. That night, they entered the tunnel and began digging the rest of the concrete wall. They still had about 6 inches of concrete ahead of them, and the digging took longer than Albert had planned. And at exactly 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, the Sewer Rats gang finally managed to enter the bank vault. Their first task was to open the weld of the iron door from inside the vault. Thanks to this clever plan, Albert and his gang had enough time to escape if the police raided them unexpectedly. After entering the bank vault, they began breaking open the safety deposit boxes one by one. They were astonished by the large quantities of jewelry, gold, money, and all the wealth they had dreamed of. The Sewer Rats gang continued breaking more safety deposit boxes. They spent approximately 27 hours inside the bank vault. Despite the enormous effort and long time they spent there, they were only able to open about 400 boxes out of 4,000, but it was enough for them. And on Monday morning at 5 o'clock, Albert told his gang that it was time to leave, less than 4 hours before the bank was scheduled to open. But before they left, Albert took the green spray paint and wrote on one of the vault walls the famous quote, "Without weapons, without violence, and without hatred." This quote was enough to ignite the investigators' anger, especially after they learned that these thieves were laughing and clapping while carrying out the biggest bank heist in the history of France. After leaving the bank, they headed directly to the house where the Sewer Rats gang resided. There, they divided the loot. Albert received an amount estimated at $10 million, including money, valuable jewelry, and gold bars. As for the gang, they got a larger share estimated at $24 million in money and jewelry. Afterwards, the gang left for their base in the city of Marseille, while Albert took his share of the loot and hid it in a place known only to him. Then he returned to his home where he lived with his wife. After he recounted all the important details to the investigators, he expressed his full desire to cooperate with them in exchange for keeping his wife out of prison. After that, Albert was placed in prison along with the rest of the Sewer Rats gang members until the final verdict was issued against them. During this period, Albert got used to meeting the judge in his office every Thursday accompanied by his lawyer. In the last meeting before the start of his trial, Albert went to the judge's office as usual and began talking calmly about the theft and his meticulous plan. The judge wanted to assess his situation and see how willing he was to cooperate with him, and this continued for several weeks. One day, Albert went to the judge's office as usual and started explaining the details of the theft, how he planned the operation, and where they began digging. But the judge seemed confused and asked Albert for help. Albert took advantage of the judge's confusion, quietly got up from his seat, and stood behind the judge's chair. Then he began to explain the details of the plan on the map more precisely. At that moment, the judge was focused on what Albert was saying and looked directly at him. And at the moment the judge looked at the map placed in front of him, Albert suddenly turned his body towards the window behind the judge's desk and jumped out. The judge and the lawyer froze in their places, stunned, unable to comprehend what happened. The judge's office was on the first floor, which made it easy for Albert to jump onto the roof of a car parked directly under the window. As soon as his feet touched the car's roof, his friend was waiting for him on a motorcycle. Albert got on behind him, and they sped off, leaving behind an unforgettable astonishment. From that day on, Albert completely disappeared, and the police were unable to find him or the treasures he stole, as he did not reveal any information about their hiding place throughout the investigations. However, they said he sent $600 to the owner of the car he landed on. Albert spent the rest of his life sending provocative photos and messages to investigators through media, newspapers, and magazines. Unfortunately, his wife, whom he loved very much, decided not to escape with him and stayed in the city of Nice, where she worked as a nurse and passed away in 1989. As for Albert, he hasn't been seen since then, up to this moment. And you, dear viewer, share your opinion with us in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel to receive all the latest updates.